Neighbor's Choice is back. I'm David Gronowski, your host, here with Amy Pova of the Can Do Clemency Foundation. Their website is candoclemency.com. And my goodness, Amy, I call her the Florence Nightingale of criminal justice reform because she's like a field nurse, innovating and doing whatever she can behind the scenes to save people from the hell of prison, unjust sentencing, oftentimes for nonviolent crimes or over sentencing for violent crimes. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in that space, and Amy's been doing it. And we're reflecting on the clemencies that she had a big impact in helping get through the finish line today, and with Donald Trump issuing notices to people at midnight. So, Amy, let's talk about some of the other people that are on your mind today. You know, both those who've got freedom today and also those who are still needing it. Do we still have Amy?
President of Can Do, who's been on your show, I think a couple of times, Enrica Caldwell, her fiance got it. And that is a huge one because he was serving life and Obama commuted his sentence. But guess what? He commuted it to 30 years, which is very rare for a president to do that. So he got credit for, frankly, a bunch of commutations of people that later we found out still had to stay in prison. So David was going to have to serve until 2033, and Trump commuted his sentence. So he got 2 commutations. And Enrica, of course, is just elated because now she can move on with her life. They have plans to get married, and I'm just so excited. There's a huge congratulations there. Levon Roach is somebody that I've advocated for a very long time. Her daughter, Clarissa Brown, is amazing. All of her children are amazing, but Clarissa wrote her compassionate release, got a little help from Jan Schneiderman, who works at Can Do, and it was denied. Well, they wrote a rebuttal, which is very rare to get that. And Levon kept writing to the judge, telling her about the conditions in the prison and COVID. And the judge granted her compassionate release, but she was already slated for commutation. And so she got both. They were, I guess, going to release her after a certain number of days for, how they keep people in 10 to 14 days before releasing, but not with clemency. And Levon is somebody who's really close to my heart. She's a Lakota Sioux Native American woman. And then Shalana McFarland received clemency. She works with the Can Do Foundation. She was on home confinement and is just over the moon happy that she went today to the halfway house and they took the ankle monitor off of her. So she was going to have to spend 10 years with an ankle monitor if she didn't get clemency. Jimmy Romans, I already mentioned him. He was serving 30 years for Pratt. Craig Cecil, you've had on your show many, many, many times. We put him, again, he was on the top 30 way back in March. Pharrell Scott was serving life for pot. Brittany Bird and My Angel Cody submitted him, and he's so happy that he got it. He's an amazing person. Adrian Miller is also received it. She was serving time for meth. And Michael Harris, who goes by Harry O, Weldon Angelos and Alice Marie Johnson really went hard for him in the final days, and he got it. John Knock, as you know, Beth Curtis's brother, she has life for pot, and she's amazing. He finally got it, and that was huge because so many people have advocated for John for many, many years. Unfortunately, Michael Montalvo was somebody who's a Vietnam vet, and he was approved even several months ago. In fact, we thought he was going to get out around Thanksgiving. And I don't know. I have no idea what happened, but something at the last second. And frankly, Sometimes I have to assume that somebody with some pull over at DOJ got wind of it and used their influence, because there's no violence in his case. He served 33 years and he's a perfect candidate.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still in a struggle with what I consider to be good versus evil. And I know DOJ thinks they wear the white hats and they're doing a good job, but when it comes to the drug war and these non-violent, they're victimless crimes, as you say all the time, they're wired wrong. They're just wired wrong. They see everything as a win and a loss instead of justice.
Yeah, it's strange how human beings, they get caught up in some kind of binary, almost robotic coldness. They just cannot see to save themselves. They go home and they hug their kids and they're like, no, I want to do everything I can to stop people who have kids of their own from hugging their kids, just because. Why? It's just mind-numbingly insane to me that people could want to put people away for decades for, like you said, these nonviolent crimes. Sometimes, just like you talk about all the time, just knowing the wrong person. And that reminds me of Evelyn Boson Papa, right? I mean, she's been on my program, and she was just dating a guy when she was 14, right? And she's left behind.
Well, Michelle West and Evelyn Boson Pappas are both serving life sentences and are two of the most disturbing losses, because they both are extremely deserving. And just like you said, Michelle in particular was not really involved in an incident that occurred, but she got thrown into the indictment based on her proximity to somebody that she dated but it was also her employer. And I don't want to spend time on the details because it's a long story. But Evelyn Boson Pappas, we were given a heads up that there was something in her PSI that they wanted resolved. And so we got it resolved. Her prosecutor wrote a letter supporting her clemency. He's retired now, so it's funny how when prosecutors retire, they suddenly have a change of heart. But how is it that her prosecutor supports her clemency and she still didn't get it?
Right.
That's because of DOJ and White House counsel pushed back. And I don't know why. We have to do something to change this culture.
Right. Is there any indication that some of the folks, like our good friend Rufus Rochelle, who's a frequent guest, he's on home confinement, but he didn't get clemency, and we all thought he was going to get it. I was really sure of it. And
I'm shocked.
Nicest soul in the world, but he has to still be in confinement. But is there any possibility that some of these folks like Rufus and Laz and Evelyn could be getting relief from the First Step Act, or will there need to be something else passed by this new government to do something?
Well, a lot of people can still do a compassionate release. That's what we have planned for Michelle. And I think Rufus needs to try that avenue. I just don't understand Rufus, because this case was very well publicized, and even the staff at the prison where he was wrote that they were in favor of his clemency. And Conrad Black wrote an email directly to Jared Kushner encouraging him, and that's somebody that Trump had pardoned and knew personally, who vouched for Rufus's credibility. He served time with Rufus, so he knew him on a personal level. And it just shocks the conscience. I personally sent over every article that came out on him to someone at the White House, and I have no idea what happened, and it'll, I guess, always be a mystery.
Well, I can only hope that Biden and Harris will make good on their promise of making criminal justice reform a top priority, and perhaps they won't be as, acquiescent like Obama was to waiting till the DOJ to tell them what to do. Maybe they'll take some bold action. We can only hope and pray that will happen, right? So that they don't have to wait 4 years to get disappointed again.
Yeah, Biden needs to make up for the 94 crime bill.
Yeah, he needs to make up for a lot, and that's one of them. So thanks again, Amy Pova, for joining us, and we'll keep following you and having you on our show, because there's much more work to be done, and the fight continues. So go to candoclemency.com. That's candoclemency.com to see the folks who are left behind because of Biden's crime bill and many other things. It's time to set these people free immediately. And instead of acquiescing to giant corporations like Biden's probably doing, he needs to spend this as his priority, making right what he did wrong for thousands of families left behind by his egregious bills of criminal justice, which has nothing to do with justice. Back in just a moment after we take a short break.
Your home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park, Tampa Bay's all new News Talk 1040.
It's the only way I get news.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. Following the scaled-back Inauguration Day, President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris got down to work. President Biden signing the first executive orders of his administration, and in the Senate, VP Harris performing the swearing-in ceremonies for the newly elected senators Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, who won the heated runoff elections in Georgia, along with Alex Padilla, who fills the seat vacated by Harris.
Do you solemnly swear?
Signaling the shift in the Senate to the Democrats' control, with Chuck Schumer now becoming majority leader. The day of traditions and hallmarks of American democracy taking place like clockwork. Joe Biden sworn in as the nation's new president and commander-in-chief. Kamala Harris sworn in too, making history as the first woman and woman of color to be elected as vice president. But today's inauguration taking place in the wake of the deadly U.S. Capitol siege 2 weeks ago. Instead of the crowds, Washington, D.C. fortified with 25,000 National Guard troops. Biden's inaugural address, he called for unity to defeat the pandemic and enemies of foreign and domestic.
We must end this uncivil war that pits red against blue, rural versus urban, or rural versus urban, conservative versus liberal. We can do this if we open our souls instead of hardening our hearts.
There was a bipartisan show of support at the inauguration, and National Poet Laureate Amanda Gorman delivering the poem The Hill We Climb, weaving words to mark America's painful history with hopeful future.
The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is.
You're listening to ABC News.
Do you check your Google search results regularly? You should. People often get their first impression of you or your business online. Negative comments on the internet can impact your life and your livelihood. Take control of your online reputation. Get your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com. It may reveal negative posts from an ex-employee, upset patient or client, news article, legal issue, or even exposed personal information right there in your Google search results. Uncover what's lurking on the internet about you with reputationdefender.com's patented scan and get your free reputation report card. Or for immediate assistance with your reputation, call 800-401-6681. Our cutting-edge technology helps make your Google search results look their best. Call 800-401-6681. That's 800-401-6681. 800-401-6681. Or take the free scan at reputationdefender.com.
All 50 states on high alert because of credible threats by far-right extremists. ABC's Trevor Ault is in Lansing, Michigan.
There is a large portion, a frighteningly large portion of this country that bought into a rotten conspiracy theory that past the election up until noon today, something was going to happen that was going to keep Joe Biden from being sworn in. Now that that has not happened, we're watching a lot of vulnerable people, a lot of angry people come crashing back to reality that the candidate that they thought was going to remain president is not going to do so, despite the fact that he said that this election was stolen.
Some world leaders expressing relief with the swearing in of Joe Biden as president. ABC's Ian Pannell is in London.
Well, we've seen that sense of relief filter through comments that we've seen from Pope Francis to Boris Johnson here in London, to Ursula von der Leyen, who's the president of the European Commission, who talked about a new dawn, said at last that Europe has a friend in the White House. So there's a lot of hope, there's a lot of optimism that alliances can be rebuilt.
The Mega Millions jackpot inching closer to $1 billion. There was no big winner last night, so Friday's jackpot will be worth about $970 million, making it the second largest jackpot in the game's history. There's another chance, though, also to win big tonight's Powerball prize, $730 million. This is ABC News.
They're knocking on the door. They're calling your phone. It's your bad credit. It's chasing you, and it won't leave you alone. You need real help. Raise Credit has daily webinars helping people just like you rebuild their credit legally and quickly. Fulfill your dreams in 2021. Raise Credit will set up a new $1,000 cash credit card for you at the end of the program. Just a setup fee and a call will get you the 750 credit score you've been waiting for. Call 800-490-4140. That's 800-490-4140.
Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
Hello, this is David Gronowski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. And we're back, ready to go for another broadcast hour where we're going to dive into the news like nobody else. Don't you love that music we have? That's original. You can just listen to it all day. Just keep it going. Maybe I'll just put on a musical show sometime, just letting all the great songs that we have on our selection of our show go on and on and on. And I think that's what we have to do, folks. We have to have our fighting spirit ready to go, because we know that there are all kinds of things that we can do to make the world a better place, and we don't have to rely on politics to get those things done. We don't have to rely on the fantasy that the television tells us every day. Just trust your experts. Just trust global organizations. We all know that there's a lot of corruption that goes on just to get an easement or just to get a road built in a small town council. What makes you think, if you got global organizations with trillions of dollars of wealth at stake, depending on what they do, that they're somehow going to be benevolent and just altruistic in their determining of what to do? You know what the WHO did. They lied. They didn't know anything about what was going on. They lie and tell you to eat seed oils. They told you, oh no, China, there's no human transmission of this virus. Nothing to see here. They said that back in January. They don't know what to say about masks, back this way, that way. They even deleted at some point, I don't know if it's back up there or not, how herd immunity happens. They said it can only happen when you get vaccinated. No, that's an absolute anti-science lie. That is a lie. We all know it's scientifically that herd immunity can occur also when people get the virus and then develop a natural herd immunity as well. So this is the reality that we're in here, that we can choose to live within the media bubble that they present to us, and we can just go into that and just go for the corporate fascism. We can just do the corporate fascist thing. Or we can actually just be dignified adults. There's a lot of people who say, I can't even right now, who are ecstatic that a man like Joe Biden, with 50 years of locking people up, locking poor people up, and as they say, they're all about racial justice, and they just elected a man who was trained by a segregationist, according to his own VP. That's who they're excited about. Do you see this as pro wrestling? Do you see that they don't care about the decent moral things that they tell you they care about? Your television was just presenting to you just a few months ago that Joe Biden was trained by segregationists, according to Kamala Harris, their hero. And now they want to tell you that somehow this is a repudiation of white supremacy, that a known person who idolized segregationists in the Democratic Party was mentored by segregationists who wanted government force to segregate. They want you to believe that his election, after making his name in the 90s with the crime bill, talking about the dangerous people that he was going to lock up forever for first-time nonviolent offenses, they want you to believe in their latest episode of stupid pro wrestling scripts that they come up with that now this is a moment of repudiation of white supremacy. Here's a question. How could you possibly believe that? How could you possibly believe any of the insanity that the folks in the television tell you? They don't care if it's the left or the right. But they have their preferred narrative, and their narratives that they prefer are the ones in which people spout political correctness bromides, but do awful, horrible, horrific things to human beings. When I look at the pictures of the presidents on stage there, Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and so on, when you look at them, you have to think to yourself, what does that mean? To get that kind of power and to use that power to go through reckless carnage, unleashing bombs and drone strikes around the world, starvation, sanctions. Sanctions are an act of war. And they do nothing but impoverish people and empower the people that they're supposed to be targeting. They empower the governments that they're supposed to be targeting while crippling and impoverishing and starving innocent civilians. How many human lives are gone before they should have been because of the people on that stage? How many human lives were snuffed out in barbaric and horrific ways because of the direct choices of Barack Obama, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Joe Biden, and now Joe Biden? The media wants you to believe that this is a moment of justice, a moment of repudiation of white supremacy. But all I see is people supremely ignorant to the value of human life around the world that has been snuffed out because of the callous actions of this uniparty system. I see a disregard for the human decency of people who live in countries that happen to be in strategic areas that people in DC want to pillage and control for their own benefit. I see an imperial privilege in DC that I think is repulsive to people around the world. Those people who want to go to war endlessly do not represent America's values. They don't represent democracy or republic. They don't represent the Constitution. They represent a callous disregard for the sanctity of human life. And it's a shame that so many in the media would sell out their mouths every day to cheerlead people who have done everything they can to keep regime change chaos as the order of the day, year after year, decade after decade, always a monster to destroy abroad. That's what those people have done to get the power they're in. That's why they're all there in the same clique. That's why they all get along. That's why they all high-five each other, because at the end of the day, they're guilty of the same behavior. They're guilty of the same immorality, which is thou shalt not kill. And they said, we'll make exception whenever we please. Thank you very much. Thou shalt not kill. And they said, no, we'll do it whenever we need to. Thank you very much. Thou shalt not kill. And Obama said, no, thank you. We'll go ahead and put up a Yemen blockade and starve out people. Why? Because it's in our strategic interest in that region. They sit around and they high-five each other, and they have sycophantic media outlets like CNN saying that Joe Biden is giving a hug to America. Giving a hug is what they describe a decades and decades and decades of a drug war, of a war on poverty, which has impoverished so many. That's giving a hug to America? Giving a hug to America by separating thousands and thousands of families, many of them people of color. That's the term the left likes to use. They want to make you think that this man wants to hug America, while many, many families cannot hug their children because they are locked in the bowels of prison because of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. See, nobody in talk radio has the arguments to defeat these bad ideas, except for what A Neighbor's Choice is bringing, because they don't want to get into the real rubber meets the road about what's right and wrong. Everybody on talk, I was listening to people on talk radio. I don't want to say everybody, but I'm just saying you listen to talk radio and you wonder, no wonder you guys are the designated losers. All you do is have little jokes to say about Greta Thunberg. Oh, she's dumb or something. That's all you can say. No wonder you're carnival barkers on talk radio. People don't want to grow up. People don't want to deal with reality. The reality is, if you want to take on bad ideologies, you cannot become like the thing that you want to critique. And when I hear folks always just saying, rah, rah, Republicans will get their power back, I say, no wonder you guys are the designated losers. No wonder you guys are the designated people that the Harlem Globetrotters are supposed to play and dunk on in spectacular glory. No wonder. That's what you always offer, those in the conservative ink. That's all they ever offer. Oh, we'll get our power back. Do what? Do what? Do what? How many decades of talk radio, and what the heck did they conserve if they're conservatives? What have they conserved? How many days and years did the talk radio folks spend their mouth shilling for the Iraq war? Just one more surge, please. Just one more surge. And now they are being twisted into the new domestic terrorists, the people who were cheering on endless surges and telling people that they blame America first if they question the eternal occupation of Iraq, to create social justice warriors out of Baghdad. Is that what they were going to do? What geniuses the conservative industry has become and has always been. They went along with telling people that we need to be always in Iraq until the surge works, and all this surge and this surge and that surge and this surge, on and on and on, until everybody was a social justice warrior in Baghdad. Those are the people who are told by, those are the people the media presents to you as the critique of the Bidens and the Harrises of the world. That's why we're in the situation we're in, because there is no real critique in conservative ink. And I have tried to be fair when Trump, I felt, was doing better than Bush and Obama, but at the end of the day, he didn't get the job done either, did he? He didn't do anything to stop Julian Assange. We don't know why. We don't know all that. We can always say, oh, there's something behind the scenes. At the end of the day, he had an opportunity to stand up for the freedom of press and to stop the show trial that Julian Assange would be involved in, and do what was right to send a message to the folks who want to bully people who just expose their wickedness and humiliate and expose them to the humiliation of what they've done. And he didn't do anything. Snowden, Assange, Ross Ulbricht, those are some of the John Kiriakou, on and on and on. He had the chance, and Donald Trump couldn't do anything. And that's on him. At the end of the day, he didn't start a new war like Obama and Bush did, but he also recklessly got more involved in Iran than he should have. And he kept going with what Obama did in Yemen. So that's not what I believe in. I don't believe we should be the policeman of the world, and I actually mean it. That's not just a bumper sticker slogan for me. I actually mean it. How many other people in talk radio even talk about the reality of what that actually looks like? It means you can't be saber rattling on Iran and Yemen and all this stuff. You have to be consistent. If you're not consistent, you're going to always have Machiavellian nihilism as the law of the land. We'll take a quick break and return in just a moment, live on A Neighbor's Choice. Email me, hello@aneighborschoice.com. That's hello@aneighborschoice.com. Back in just a moment. David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER. Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
Some out-of-the-area law firms advertise that they are the largest. Do you think large firms help your case? Possibly. But your case will receive personal care from local attorneys Catania and Catania. They are family-owned. Tampa Bay attorneys representing clients who have experienced auto and motorcycle accidents. Your case with Catania and Catania will seek to get a settlement in your favor expeditiously. Catania and Catania, serving Tampa Bay families for over 28 years. Referrals on request. Get the local law firm that will care for your case from beginning to end. They don't get paid if you don't get paid. Catania and Catania, putting families first. Car accident, motorcycle accident, call the local attorneys. Catania and Catania. Offices Tampa. Not attorney spokesperson.
Neighbor's Choice is back. So look at the state media organs. You have New York Times. They say Joe Biden's long road to the presidency. When Joseph R. Biden Jr. was sworn in as the 46th president of the United States, it was a moment of political ... No one cares. Here's another one. Washington Post. The two sides of Joe Biden. What are Americans to make of the man they have chosen to lead them at a time of severe division? In a moment of no one cares. These people are yesterday's news. And this is the best they can do, is to provide someone who looks straight out of Weekend at Bernie's to lead the glorious dream of the swamp. They want you to believe that everything's fine. But it's okay. Listen. It's always been like this. You know, this is the thing you got to understand. The media has always been, the smoke-filled rooms of the 1800s and so forth. They were always picking their presidents based on who would be the best PR representative of the state in its status quo of pillaging you for special corporate and government interests. That's what the media has always been doing, by and large. That's what they've done for thousands of years. I've told you before. The media is the mediator. What is the mediator? That's the priestly caste that tells you what the gods want you to believe and what the people are to do. They're the media. And that's where you get the scribal caste writing down myths. It is said that once in a while you must sacrifice these people so that the rain will come down next season. Who said that? The Priestley cast did. Why do they say that? Because they're the media. They're the mediators that tell you the high transcendent values that justify their view of sacrificial might makes right, that they can sacrifice whom needs to be sacrificed in order to preserve the unity, which is actually just a cover for making a buck off of exploiting your labor. And everything their narrative is about is all about getting you to not see that, getting you to see, oh, great, this is a victory for white supremacy that a known segregationist ally like Joe Biden is elected president at 78 years old. That's a victory of repudiating white supremacy. Nobody with a conscience or a brain believes that. Nobody. The whole world laughs at this, if they're even paying much attention. They laugh at this kind of histrionic garbage. It's pathetic. It's sad. And it's sad because there's real lives that are suffering. That's what we have. We have a joke of a media that wants to sell you hard on the belief that a guy who Kamala Harris just told us a few months ago was trained by segregationists is now the hero for ending white supremacy. A man who locked up people, particularly people of color, is now the victory for people of color. Nobody believes this with a conscience or brain. Nobody believes it. Now, there are people who are ignorant and gullible, and they don't know what's going on, and they're buying into this myth. But I think it won't be very effective. I think that the grandeur of the establishment is losing its luster daily. There are folks who are more honest on the left who see through this administration as nothing but corporate fascist policy, this new administration. There are people on the left, like Michael Moore, who rightly criticized and exposed the green energy scam that this administration will embrace. Watch his movie, Planet of the Humans, if they haven't censored it off the face of the internet. It is a green industry scam. See, the garbage conservative Inc. media will tell you, oh, yeah, Paris Climate Accord, it's just bad. Yeah, they don't even know how to analyze anything. I do much better than that. We provide people who are actually doing real clean energy without your tax dollars, and that these types of energy, if we could just spend the time and the money and get the attention and the talent towards them, could be developed and scaled up to provide clean energy too cheap to meter. But those voices are not heard in the media because they don't want real solutions. Just like they tell you, wear a stupid mask that's not an N95 mask and that somehow will help people, but they won't tell you to stop eating the seed oils and the processed flour and the processed sugar, which creates the disease state of the body, which makes this virus a difficult experience for people sometimes. They offer you no solutions, neither the conservative Inc. designated losers or the establishment religion of political correctness in its media outlets. They promise you green energy, and all it is a scam to enrich giant corporations and banks who finance those corporations. They promise you justice reform, and they give you a guy who made his name locking people up for unjust sentences. They promise you peace, and they bring in a bunch of people who started more wars and drone strikes than anybody had seen. Everything they say is the opposite of what they're actually delivering. We can hope that there'll be some good change. I hope so. And I would do the same thing that I've always done whenever there's a president. I will not get into the business of scapegoating them as the problem. You know, Biden is not the problem. He is just a symptom of people idolizing centralized command and control economy to solve problems in their life. So we're not going to make it a personal thing. We're going to make it a real thing. We're going to give you the truth. We're going to tell you the stories of the victims that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have used to gain their power. We're going to let the victims speak. Nobody in Conservative Inc. does that. That's why they lose. That's why they're designated losers. But we understand that there's a new world order emerging that's been going on for some 2,000 years. And it is saying that the last shall be first and the first shall be last. And it is saying that the voices are crying out in history. The voices of victims who have been mowed over by decades and decades and centuries of idolatry of the state and its crony allies. And you and I get to be a part of creating a new conversation that's grounded in principle, that's grounded in hope, that's grounded in innovation, that's grounded in tolerance, grounded in nonviolence, dignity, grace, and mercy. Not that we're perfect, but that we choose to not succumb to the petty indignities of crying out to authoritarian government to be our nannies. Back in just a moment. Now you'll get an update from the state from their media outlet, ABC, if you're listening on radio.
Ronald Reagan would turn over in his grave if he saw what's going on today.
Crazy things are happening.
You cannot be afraid. You've got to stand up for what you believe is right.
But one thing is for sure.
You can't trust anybody.
For talk, news, and information, you can count on us.
Enough is enough. I mean, I almost blew a gasket.
Good for the country.
I know what I'm talking about. A lot of wackos out there.
Your connection to talk about it. The all-new News Talk 1040 WHB.
President Biden making good on a promise to get to work on day one. He's in the Oval Office. He's signing some executive orders. The first one mandating masks be worn in all federal buildings. ABC's Mark Remillard was at today's parade, which was scaled down due to COVID-19 and security concerns.
His motorcade came down Pennsylvania Avenue, which is lined with members of the military. The president not in his motorcade. Walking by his side was the First Lady. They stopped. They waved to members of the media as they made their way down Pennsylvania Avenue to the northwest gate of the White House, where the president entered the White House complex for the first time as president and then entered the White House.
After making history at her swearing in, Vice President Kamala Harris swore in some historic senators today, including her replacement, Alex Padilla, the first Latino senator to represent California. With continuing coverage, the inauguration of Joe Biden. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
So if you're listening on radio or our video stream, you just heard the state media outlet ABC. They are excited. You could hear the giddiness in those robotic news anchor reports. Joe Biden is making good on his promises. It's like they don't realize how North Korean wannabe they act. You know, they're pathetic. They're so, he's making good on his promises. And you hear the glory, glory, hear that music playing in the background. It is a religious ecstasy that these people have because they worship and grovel at pathetic attempts of controlling the world with their favored crooks. And Biden has a long history of being a crook, of being someone who pillages people who are poor around the world and around our country. And he does so to benefit his own family, to benefit his own friends. But that's what everybody in D.C. does. So if you expose him, they're like, well, what's the problem? There's nothing to see here. Go away. We are the rulers and we want power. And we're going to play our little religious songs, glory, glory, hallelujah, and talk about how great Joe Biden's mask mandate is. To wear a cloth that has so many holes in it, it's not going to stop anything. But they don't care. They just care about their sick, sacrificial religion. Who's the sacrifice? Anybody who stands in the way of their power and anybody who has wealth that they can extract through their predatory regulatory state. That's the bottom line of what they're doing. You look at the other things that the ABC News broadcast said, talking about, Kamala Harris, who also made history today. You know, they're just... History what? Locking up more people than we've ever had as a vice president? Is she the person who's locked up more people before becoming vice president? Is that her record today? And then she says, the news anchor, ABC news anchor, the state media outlet said, actually, what's great is she put in the first Latino to represent California to replace her. You see how all they do is they dangle out identity politics in a very arrogant way. And they think that Hispanics will be placated by, oh, wow, well, you gave us a Latino to represent California. Therefore, it's okay that you're corporate fascists that want to send our kids to war and extract all the wealth you can and pillage people. That's okay. You put a Latino in there. They think that they're so disrespectful to Hispanics and everybody that they try to create as their little identity, groups. That somehow, oh, you won't see, nothing to see here, no corporate fascism to see here, no censorship to see here, no egregious anti-science attacks against our health to see here. No, all we have to offer you is identity politics. As long as the people are on the right ideological page. I mean, if the first Latino senator to represent California was a libertarian or a constitutionalist or something, oh my goodness, they would not highlight that in the ABC News report, let me tell you. They would not highlight this is the first Latino to serve as a U.S. senator from California. They would not highlight that. They only do so if it serves their religion, their cultish religion of worshiping the state in the name of the sacred victim. But it's not really real. It's not about saving real victims. It's about talking a big game and doing nothing but pillaging. YouTube listener Dark Angel California says, I don't think that foreign lives even matter to the Democrats. Right now, many people, my country, Mexico, are infuriated over Biden promising free green cards and letting immigrants march through here. Many Latinos are highly suspicious, or rather fully aware of Biden being a globalist puppet, a temporary decoy for Harris or Clinton to take over the presidency. Magic Marker Online says, this is our YouTube stream. If you want to join in on the conversation, go to our YouTube stream, search for David Granosky and subscribe there, or Facebook. We have a video stream there. Magic Marker says, Taiwan is also upset at Biden winning. Like Hong Kong, they may lose their freedom. Dark Angel says, left-wing corporate fascism, the leftists are the fascists of the 21st century. Gokata says, mask mandates, wonderful. Oh, well, it already sucks in New York. But that's what you have to deal with, folks, in the media, is a desire, above all else, to maintain the glorious facade of their religion. They play their little music, glory, glory, hallelujah, right? But it's not about what's true and what's right and what's truly glorious. Jesus says power is made perfect in weakness. Did you see any of that on display in D.C.? Did you see any of that reality on display? And I'm not saying Trump, obviously, he had a garish, cartoonish view of power, which offended them because he wasn't doing politics right in their imagination. He was being too garish and open about what politics is. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to have decorum. You're supposed to act like you're in a Shakespearean play. You're supposed to not pretend that the presidents on that stage are not together collectively guilty of killing thousands and thousands and thousands of innocent lives around the globe and impoverishing thousands and thousands and thousands of people's lives here in America for nonviolent, bogus charges. You're supposed to just act like that didn't happen. And the way they get that little act to work is by using decorum and, well, we speak like we're all together and united. Bam, bam, bam. Bombs just dropped on innocent civilians around the world. You see how it works? We are all here for what? Justice. Bam, bam, bam. Someone just got arrested for a nonviolent regulatory nanny state crime. Bam, bam, bam. Someone just got shot in a drug war sting that shouldn't be happening because you don't solve problems of the heart by force. They don't have to worry in their mind about the truth coming out because the media is so complicit in selling all the worst aspects of their agenda of surveillance. Remember, the media loved Trump when he dropped those strikes on Syria early on. Remember that? They said, "Oh, he became president. This is beautiful. We love it. Keep it up." And he didn't. He didn't do enough of that. The media got the memo that somehow Iran, you can't demonize Iran, but you can demonize, replacing the Syrian government. And so they didn't really get on board with him doing his stuff with Iran. And I actually agree that he shouldn't have done stuff to encourage aggression with Iran. But they loved it whenever he did anything that served their interests in getting rid of Assad, who John Kerry dines with before, with his wife. It said that Biden had maybe 2,000 attendees at inauguration and 25,000 military, just like they do in lawless banana republics. That's the headline at the Gateway Pundit. And it is striking. The visual is striking. It's striking how weak it looks. That America would have to stoop to this kind of visual. And it's awful. The Capitol riot, that was awful too. And it was awful to see the cities burning this summer. That the TV was saying was a moment of change, and we're echoing themes of a summer of love or whatever. But all this stuff is all a product of idolatry, of worshiping mere mortals to manage the affairs of the world, to solve racial problems, to solve disputes between the gender. These politicians really believe they can solve, issues between man and woman, that they can solve gender disputes. That's how pathetically narcissistic to a pathological degree that these politicians that are politically correct are. But they can solve gender disputes between man and woman by obliterating the concept of man and woman. This is nothing new. There's always a state of undifferentiation when a society loses its boundaries of order and differentiation. When a society loses its ability to unite people based on a shared narrative of sacrificial glory. When they lose that, it spills into undifferentiation, in which the lines between gender are eliminated, the lines between, class and all these different things get blurred as completely as possible. And then it becomes an undifferentiated chaos. And the ancient world would always try to resolve that undifferentiated chaos or stave it off by offering a sacrifice. But as I've told you many times, Jesus destroyed that ancient practice of creating calm and avoiding undifferentiation by exposing the sacrificial mechanism that ancient societies used to pacify the public and unite people into 100% conformity. But now we don't have, so Jesus destroyed that little sacrificial mechanism. It doesn't work anymore. And that's why if they try to sacrifice more and more and more, it breaks apart and breaks schism and creates division more and more and more. And that's why we're always in this increasing state of undifferentiation in our culture. Because they're trying to sacrifice, but it's not creating unity. It's not creating peace. It's not creating catharsis. And so therefore, what are you left with? More and more undifferentiation, because people are copying each other. And eventually they lose sight of what it means to have any distinct being. They become an amorphous blob of, totally undifferentiated human beings. Gender goes away. Identity goes away. Everything. And that's why their whole thing is all about trying to create these coalitions of tribes based on certain identity markers But that's not sustainable. It's not going to create any resolution. It's not going to create any true unity based on mutual understanding. You know, the Washington Post says the racial enemy is multiracial whiteness. That's what they say. Multiracial whiteness. It's not just white people that they are saying have a problem of whatever. It's also other races that share whiteness as a being or something, you know. They're concerned about Trump, though they painted him as a Nazi, getting the highest support of a Republican from non-white voters. They're concerned about that. And they're concerned about millions and millions of more who didn't vote for Trump, who are also not buying their garbage identity politics scam. And they say, okay, so now we got to move the goals a little bit. Now we got to say, well, actually, you can be of another race, but be whiteness. Have the evil of whiteness on you. These people are playing around with childish and stupid, racist language, trying to dehumanize people and pit people against each other. And if you don't submit your mind to the ideas of John Maynard Keynes, the economist, or Karl Marx, or Foucault, who is the father of a lot of this stuff with the social justice stuff, critical theory, if you don't submit to their groupthink of these old European dead guys, they want to say that you have multiracial whiteness, that you're of another race, but your toxic whiteness is still there. And they got to get rid of that out of your head if you don't submit to their dead European thinkers like Marx and Foucault and John Maynard Keynes. You see how pathetic their whole thing is? And the reason why they're able to get away with so much is because they have such weak opponents intellectually on the right. That's why it's not going to be left or right that solves this problem. It's going to be people, the people like you and I, who we don't care about the tribalism. We don't care about the blame game stuff. We don't care about what Mitch McConnell's going to do. We don't care about that joke stuff. We just want to get on with solving problems together. We just want to get our health better. We want to get our safety understood better. We want to have a more prosperous neighborhood. We want to have a better way of creating affordable housing for people, not through government, but through innovation, through getting government out of the way so that people can innovate in the world of housing. And there's so much that we can do, but we have to let go of this whole religious lie that the media keeps pushing, that we should surrender our liberties for some kind of Orwellian false sense of security. It's just not going to work. Back in just a moment with more on A Neighbor's Choice. Hello, this is David Gronowski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a 6th-generation beautiful farm in Southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved 2 people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com.
Do you despise lawyers? That may be the case until you need one. If you've been in an auto accident and need legal advice, go to the local attorneys that have served Tampa Bay families for over 28 years. Catania and Catania. They are family owned. They understand your legal situation. When you need legal representation, Catania and Catania will care for your case from from the beginning to the end of representation. You won't need to worry. Catania and Catania will represent you through the entire process. Auto or motorcycle accidents are too frequent in Florida. Catania and Catania. They don't get paid if you don't get paid. Referrals on request. Contact Catania and Catania. Putting families first. Offices, Tampa. An attorney spokesperson.
A Neighbor's Choice is back. I'm David Gronowski here. You can email me hello@aneighborschoice.com if you want to ask us a question, or you can drop a comment on our live stream on YouTube. Just search for David Gronowski. So Biden declares that democracy has prevailed. Meanwhile, his opponents, like George W. Bush, called him, well, they're very happy. Let's just put it that way. Here's a story in the state media outlet, the Associated Press, that Clyburn says that Bush called him a savior for boosting Biden. South Carolina Democrat Representative Jim Clyburn, on a call with reporters, said Bush told him, you're the savior, because if you had not nominated Joe Biden, we would not be having this transfer of power today. He said Bush added that Biden was the only Democratic candidate he felt could have defeated President Donald Trump. I want to know from George W. Bush, who's going to save the Middle East from the chaos that you have unleashed and Obama has unleashed, and what Biden probably will continue to unleash? But of course, you think you're the savior of the Middle East. These people are in such a state of narcissistic insanity. And that's why they wanted you to know, and that's why they told all their media outlets, their allies in the media, to spin Trump as an unprecedented exception. That he was the narcissist when he was just a scapegoat for what they all were. Meaning, yeah, Trump's narcissistic. But the fact that they're trying to make him look like he's more narcissistic than anybody else is a total delusion. George W. Bush is the kind of sick narcissist that actually believes that he can remake people in a far-off country with various different values that he has no idea about the culture, that he can remake it into the image of social justice democracy, like the one you saw on display in the inauguration today. That is the most insanely delusional, narcissistic stuff you could imagine. But that's the same thing Obama believes. That's the same thing Biden believes, Kamala Harris. But they got their media sycophants to paint this picture that they were the normal people, but Trump was the unique narcissist. They just projected their sins onto him. But it won't work because Jesus broke the scapegoat mechanism, so it won't unite people. And of course, listen to the narcissists like Andrew Cuomo, who says on January 11th, we simply cannot stay closed until the vaccine hits critical mass. The cost is too high. We will have nothing left to open. We must reopen the economy, but we must do it smartly and safely. He sounds like the guys that were getting banned left and right by the corporate fascists on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and so forth. But now that their scapegoat is defeated, they're going right back to their cynical play, which was, well, we actually did those lockdowns to cripple people who stood in the way of our power. And while we were there, we consolidated business for our special crony corporations. And we've got to see how nice and compliant and docile and pathetic a lot of the population is. When they're told to sit, they sit. When they're told to stand, they stand. When they're told to do jumping jacks, they do it. They are willing dupes for narcissistic tyrants. And they just can't help themselves. When you have people who are that sociopathic and that narcissistic, they just can't help themselves to do whatever they can to take advantage of people who are that gullible, to give them that much power over their churches and restaurants and bars and everything. How about Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot said Thursday, this is in Chicago Sun-Times, so you know it's something that's official, right? She said she's seeking to reopen Chicago's bars and restaurants for indoor service as soon as possible. If we look at the various criteria that the state has set, we are meeting most, if not all of those. So that's a conversation that I will have with the governor. We're at the point where we need to talk about it. We need to be talking about when and not if. Easing restrictions on indoor service would provide a safer outlet for people to socialize and possibly cut down on underground parties where attendees do not social distance or wear masks, she said. Wow. What a genius that she discovered that if you make a prohibition, it will create an underground market. Wow. Welcome. Welcome to being an adult. We learn that before we're adults, usually if we have a, honest mind. Newsweek says on January 15th, 2021, and I've referenced this before, but just to recap, COVID lockdowns have no clear benefit versus other voluntary measures, international study shows. Newsweek is a good little fake state media outlet, and so they put out, the coverage for these kind of things once the coast is clear that their boogeyman, Donald Trump, has been vanquished. People don't want to believe that folks are that cynical and that soulless in their ability to crush millions of people's lives by destroying their businesses and entire government economies and so forth around the world, national economies around the world. They don't want to believe that people are that cynical in their desperate attempt to get more power, but they are. And you should know that, because that should inform your decisions about how you put your faith, or whether you put your faith in these kind of cynical folks and their institutions. The Department of Agriculture is not going to do the right thing. They're going to subsidize toxic seed oils with your money. And they're not going to tell you to stop eating them during a pandemic when you absolutely need to stop eating those things to help your health. They won't tell you that. So who do you turn to? Who do you turn to? The AP is talking about extremists exploit a loophole in social moderation. Podcasts. So now they want to go after podcasts. They want to go after extremists, conspiracy theorists. But only conspiracy theorist is only a term that's used for people who challenge their power. They have sowed racist conspiracy theories like the Russia hoax. They have sowed conspiracy theories about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Lethal, horrible, disgusting, racist, and repulsive conspiracy theories. But those won't be the target of their next attack on free speech, which is to pressure these giant corporations that have government-protected control of their market to clamp down and start deleting podcasts. They won't stop until they have full control. That's what insecure, weak minds do. They don't stop in their quest for power. It consumes them. They always feel fragile. They always feel vulnerable if they can't stamp out every aspect of dissent. So they've deleted tons of people off of social media. They've throttled their ability to get exposure. They delete followers off their accounts. They delete competition to those social media outlets. Then they go after next. Let's go after podcasts. Let's get them off. Now others are claiming they're going to try to get Fox News and OAN and Newsmax off of cable providers. They don't stop. So the key is to stop feeding the machine itself that they use to consume this power, which is their religion of state worship. Because that's their mechanism for grabbing more and more power. Because they create regulations and policies which empower a select group of crony capitalists to run right over the liberties and values and expression and tolerance and diversity of thought that America has had in the past. That's what weak minds do. They say, okay, we got rid of all these platforms. Now let's go after podcasts. Then they'll want to go after radio again. Remember, they're going to try to do that. But what are you going to do? You're going to go along with that weak-minded tyranny? Or are you going to speak out about truth and love and the truth about nutrition, the truth about energy, the truth about education? There's a lot that we can do, but it's got to be turning off the television, stop letting them sow hate and discord, and go love your neighbor as yourself. I'm David Gronowski. Godspeed.